everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Influence Economy. I'm your host, Shayna Davis. I'm so glad that you're here today. But before we get started, I have a favor to ask. So, wherever it is that you're listening to this episode, I want you to take a screenshot. And with that screenshot, I want you to post it on your social media, tag us here at Shayna Rattler Davis, and then I just want to hear your biggest aha moment or your biggest takeaway from this episode. And the reason why I do that is because I believe that far too many women are seen and just not paid well. And so many of them just don't know where to start to change that. And so the more times that we share these episodes, the more people that can be exposed to the shifts that are going to be required in order for them to begin to own their influence. So I want to thank you so much in advance for being willing to do that. I'm going to read my guest bio and then we are going to get straight into it. My guest today serves as the CEO for Icon Foods. She oversees the financial operations, reporting, and compliance of this organization, as well as drives their growth and profitability. She has a strong background in legal matters such as acquisition, negotiation, trademark applications, regulatory compliance, and contract drafting, which enables her to handle complex and diverse transactions and issues. She currently holds an MBA degree from Eastern Washington University with a focus on accounting and finance to further enhance her skills and knowledge in this field. In her free time, she loves to be with her family, spending time outdoors and golf. I'm excited to welcome to the show Kash Rocheleau.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm excited to have you. You have such an impressive background. And so we're going to get into what all that entails and how other people can do some of the things that you've accomplished and, some of the advice that you would give them. And one of the things that I'm a big proponent of is connections, like high value connections and high value relationships. And in
Mhm.
your opinion, Cash, like how can women in leadership like build these high value connections that are going to drive both career and business growth?
Yeah, I talk about this a lot because I'm a big advocate for relationships. I think that it is um, more about your relationships than your skills a lot of times. So um, I think that having the relationships is key in not just high net, high value, I think in all areas. And I think it's how young young women entering the workforce can gain traction into upward mobility is building relationships from the ground up. And you not only create this platform for you to grow in your profession, but you create rapport and you create this following. And for me personally, in the manufacturing side of things, I saw this in real life. Like as I was the CFO, very comfortable being behind the screen, being in the data and the spreadsheets, being very introverted. And as we started to create a transition plan for me to move into the CEO role, I was challenged to go out on the floor and work with our team on the forklift, to work with our team on the production line. And at first, it was just kind of like, why would I do this? Right? Like, my value is here. And in the transition, I have had such respect, such rapport, and such trust from this group of people because when I ask for something, it's not coming from this place of, oh, here's another boss or leader coming and telling us to do something. She understands the why because she's been in the weeds with us. I would say on the flip side, the high value ones will get you into opportunities that you may not have if you don't have them. When you look at leaders, a lot of them have been placed there because of the relationships they had, certainly because of their skill set. But if you look at skill set to skill set and they're similar, one has a relationship and one doesn't, I think we both know who is going to get that upward mobility opportunity.
Absolutely. And I want to unpack something that you said a little bit more. You talked about how you had grown comfortable in your role of kind of being like behind the scenes and not necessarily
Yeah.
just forward facing. You found comfort in the data. And
Mhm.
I think that that can happen so often, either one, just because that's the nature of the position that you're in, or that's what you naturally gravitate to because it's your personality, right? Like everyone is not
Mhm.
sis boom ba rah rah out there
Yeah.
like I happen to be. And so if someone is listening right now and they find themselves in either one of those positions, whether they're either like my natural proclivity is to kind of pull back and want to be
Mhm.
second or third in command and kind of bury myself in the data or behind the scenes, or if that's just the nature of my position. What worked for you to kind of either get out of that comfort zone or being willing to
Mhm.
push yourself for what was going to be required for the next level?
That's a really good question. I think that first and foremost, for me or anyone, you have to ask yourself, what are you looking for, right? Are you looking for climbing in this department? When I was in the finance department, my goal was to climb to the CFO level. I think a lot of financial professionals look for that climax in their career. And and so for me, once I got there, being very type A, checking off the boxes, going through the motions, I got there and had this feeling of like, now what? What next? And that's okay if you don't have that. I think that we need people and leaders in the world that will take a spot and own it and not need the next level. That's okay. We truly do need those people, and those people are very valuable. For me, just a very driven person. I always want to be learning. When I'm complacent, I feel like I'm not growing. And when I feel like I'm not growing, I feel a little bit like I'm spiraling. And so when I got to that point, for me, it was like, okay, what next? The natural next progression is a CEO. And so for me, it was all growth mindset. And now the mindset is in, well, now I've gotten to the CEO level. What next? Naturally, it's just never going to be enough. But for me, now the mindset has shifted to someone needs to take my spot one day. And as leaders, we get very wrapped up in the control or the scarcity of what if this person knows more than me? What if this person takes my job? And for me, it was, well, I hope they do. I'm looking for my replacement because if I don't have someone that I can pour my knowledge into that can take my seat one day, there's a ceiling over me. And it took mentors kind of pouring that into me for me to have that mindset shift.
I think it's also important to note why it's so necessary to also have a succession plan in place way before
Mhm.
you need it. You know, if you care at all about the company that you work for, or if you're hoping to one day retire from your own business but leave the legacy of your business, it's so important to think about not just, hey, somebody's going to take my place, but who is going to take my place? And how do we begin to, I know groom has become such a taboo word, but how do we begin to prepare
Yeah.
to be able to do so so that the company, whether it's mine or someone else's, can continue to not only just thrive, but be far more superior than what it is that we've created.
Mhm. Yeah, I fully agree with that because a lot of times we look at, what's next for going from controller to CFO, same kind of thing. If I move into this role, there's still a bucket of work that has to be done. Am I going to do all of it? I mean, I probably could, but is all areas of my life going to get the best version of me? Probably not. Very much checking off the boxes, just kind of coasting through life. And so, um, for our transition, we certainly put together a transition plan. We had about a 12-month transition plan. And for us, we're on the smaller side. We're about a $25 million business. And the founder was the CEO at the time. And so he founded this in 25 years ago, had all of the industry rapport, all of the industry trust. Really, his voice was so ingrained into everything that the business was doing, had done. And so it took time because not only internally was there this transition that had to happen, there had to be this level of trust on the exterior. We work in food, and very much like we talked about, food is all about relationship. I'm not just going to invite you to break bread at my table. There's got to be a level of relationship. And after we've broken bread, there's a level of intimacy, also kind of a taboo word, but um, it's very similar in the food industry. In the transactions that we're doing, no one wants to do a transaction. They want a relationship. They want to know that you are partnering with them from ideation to commercialization. And so the transition for us was so imperative because our supply chain partners, our customer base, industry leaders, the editorial personnel that were so used to this singular voice, um, they now had to understand that there was another voice in the arena, and we are very different people. We're different generationally, we are different gender wise, we are different in our backgrounds. He's very sales and marketing based. I'm finance based, and so I think that transitions are imperative internally, but I think that so often they're overlooked on the impacts that they have on the business externally.
Yeah. So my show, the audience of my show is probably 90% women, if not
Hmm.
95% women, and that's by design. And so I'm real big on women being able to win on their own terms. How can they take their influence? How can they take their expertise and really, succeed in the area that we're in right now? In manufacturing, it's really fascinating to me, the fact that you're in
Hmm.
manufacturing, like where you started, now you're at the helm of it. And there's a big push these days. You see a lot about women in tech. Young
Hmm.
girls and women are being pushed pushed to go into STEM and other male dominated ways. And so speaking of these relationships, like how can women use like how can strategic relationships help women to break into, we're told like, hey, go into all these industries, but like the
Hmm.
last company that I worked at, it was an engineering place. I knew nothing about engineering. There was all these dudes
Hmm.
from Silicon Valley, and here I come in like all blinged out and stuff. And so how can a woman, we hear like we're being told that we have a space at the table in what's considered to
Hmm.
be male dominated spaces. And so how can strategic relationships kind of help us get into those industries, especially if we're feeling some type of resistance, whether it's internal or external?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I'm a big advocate for women in all areas, all industries. I would say that we have made a lot of progress. There's still a lot of progress yet to be made. When I first took the helm as CFO for our company, I was a very loud, boisterous voice on this. And again, like you mentioned, I'm in a very male-dominated industry, and I would get so frustrated because I felt like I'm pushing this. I'm a supportive of women. I want women to know they have this right. And it really wasn't going anywhere. I had a lot of women supporting me, like, yes, Cash, like, thanks for being this voice. But it didn't seem to be heard at the tables that it mattered, or at the tables where the change was really going to happen. And so I had to kind of take a step back and pause, and what is the change that I want to see? What is the impact that I want to make? And I really had to reconcile that it was not about me, that it was about the generation behind me. And in that, I found that being the loudest voice at the table wasn't going to get me much movement. It was the representation, right? I was there on my own merit. I had to let go of the imposter syndrome. I was there because my education supported the skills needed. I was there because of the time that I put in, and I was there because I earned it.
Yeah.
And because I earned it, I deserved it. I tried to let go of the fact, and this might be unpopular, that um, that I was there to kind of equal the playing field of, now we have a woman at the table, or we're trying to be diverse, because I do want women, when we get to, and I say that like we will get there. I don't know when or if I will get to see it, but we will get there. I want women to have equal representation because we have fully earned it and fully deserve it. It pains me a little bit when I talk to companies and they say, well, we have 50% of our leadership team is women because we want that representation. And so it kind of makes me like, so you have women there because you want it to look good for you. Like, I think that's kind of a a different way, different perspective in looking at it. But there are so many deserving women that are overlooked. So from my perspective, I think being the representation, being at the table, knowing that I deserve that, but then also I take it as a responsibility to lift up those people behind me. When they let that imposter syndrome kind of kick in, like, I don't deserve here, tell me why. Why do you think you don't deserve to be here? Is it because you're telling yourself that? Is it because you need the skills to get there? Or is it because someone else is telling you? Because one of those stories, we can kind of alter the ending. One of them is untrue, and you're going to have to let it go, right? And so really being a voice to those women who feel like they can't do it, they don't deserve it, or there are louder voices in their head than their own. So I think relationships are super important in this aspect. I also think surrounding yourself with people that can look at these situations very um unbiased, right? They're not looking at, this is a male, this is a female. They're looking at the resumes and picking the most qualified person. Um, and sometimes you have to put relationships aside to make the right, fair decision. So, very long-winded answer, but I think my calling, where I feel my responsibility is really just being the visual that you can do this. The only thing in your way is you.
Yeah. And I love this notion of like, I didn't have to be the loudest, because one of the things that I do believe that we should do is, when I talk about owning your influence, it's so much also about like owning your voice and owning your decisions. And I think that the way you be loud is not in volume, but you should be bold and courageous enough to be loud in making sure that your point of view and that your
Mhm.
thought leadership is actually being heard and is being demonstrated through what it is that you do. Because in the event that hopefully you work at a company that is actually results driven and cares about outcome, you're going to
Mhm.
be able to, I'm air quoting if you're not watching the video, you're going to be able to quote unquote like brand yourself and get your foot at the table and make sure that you don't have to be loud volume wise, because you're leading with your point of view and you're leading
Mhm.
with your thought leadership and your opinions that are going to lead to the growth of the organization.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with that. And I think that when you talk about results driven, like taking that just a step further, it was easy for me at the beginning of my career to say, I'm a woman, we don't have women here, like let me have a seat at the table and have my voice heard. Whereas when I took that step back and really started to lay the foundations of here's my skill set and here's it backed by my work, the rapport came. And so now when I am at those tables, because of my history, because of my track record, I'm heard. Not because I'm a female, not because I'm a male, but because the track record has proven that I deserve to be there and deserve to be heard. And the cherry on top is that I'm a female doing it.
Absolutely. So we're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to carry this relationship a little bit further and even touch on how we can help to bring the generation behind us with us. So we'll be right back. Ready to turn your influence into income? Take the Influence Growth Assessment. In just minutes, you'll uncover the next steps to grow your visibility, attract bigger opportunities, and boost your profitability. Visit myinfluencestyle.com to take the assessment today. A new era of success is waiting. Let's make it yours. All right, welcome back. So, we are talking about relationships and we're talking about leadership, especially for women. And if you're in a male dominated industry or you want to be in a male dominated industry, or sometimes it's just a male ran company, right? So, I believe in keeping with this theme of like our network and our relationships, that quality matters over quantity in terms of like the size of the relationship. And so, in your
Mhm.
opinion, like how do we make sure that we're building a high value network and not just a large one? Because I hear people pride themselves. I was at a meeting a couple of months ago, and I won't say a whole lot more because people might be able to tell where I'm at. But this woman just kept talking about like I've got this many connections and this many power partners and this many that. And I was like, dude, who cares? You know, it's like having a million followers and being visible and not profitable. And so
Mhm.
I think that we should be focused on the value of our network and not just the size of it. And so how can we do that? How can we be strategic about not just making sure we have a big network, but we have a high quality network?
That's a great question. I actually talked on this a couple weeks ago, um, specifically to LinkedIn, because very similarly, I'm in a lot of conversations that, oh, I have this many connections, this many followers, XYZ. And when I ask, well, how many of those do you realistically know? How many of those do you realistically connect with? If I was to pick randomly five out of them, could they really speak to, your intentions, to your moral compass, to your values, um, to your influence? And typically the answer is no. And so I would say that um, high value relationships are invaluable. And I think in all areas of life, not just your professional life, but even in your personal life. I have three friends, and I'm okay with that. It
Yes.
sounds crazy, but I have three friends, and um, they all feed into me in different ways that I need, but it is a reciprocal relationship, right? Like I'm feeding them and they're feeding me. They are not to-dos on my list. And they're feeding me, right? They're keeping me going. I don't have time to have friends, colleagues, um, that we're gonna, talk about the weather. I know what the weather is right now. It's blue skies and sunny and 70 degrees. I don't need to have a conversation to talk on that. Where I think that the relationships really matter is people that truly know you can speak into you and you also speak into them, and also people that can truly speak to your skill set, right? Like in our industry, we've got thousands of media outlets, and we choose to work with like three to five of them because they know our brand, they know our tone. I don't feel like when I say something to them, it's going to get misconstrued when it goes out to media. And it's very similar. So I carry a lot of my personal life into my professional life because I don't think that you can compartmentalize. I think you are one person. And so when it comes to those three friends, when I look at, my professional life, I've got three mentors, and same thing. They pour into me in ways that I need. What they say to me is not always going to be popular, but it's what needs to be heard. They're not always going to be my hype men or hype women, but they're going to help make me a better version of me to show up for my employees, for my family, etc. So I think that, again, long-winded, when you are creating this circle personally, professionally, mentorship wise, less is more.
Yeah. When I was growing up, my grandmother used to tell me, now for context, she was an old woman from the South that was like not educated or whatever, although she was one of the most wise women that I knew. But she told me
Mhm.
something as a young girl. She used to say, if you have more than three friends, the others aren't your friends. And
100%.
and when I was a child, I used to think, well, that's a crappy life. Like, I want a bunch of friends. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
as I've grown older and I realize more of the meaning by some of these, what I consider to
Mhm.
be kooky things that she told me growing up, I think speaks exactly to what you're saying. It's not that I don't have more people in my life that are friendly.
Mhm.
It's not that I don't have more people in my life that we like each other. But when it really gets down to the conversations that matter, the support
Mhm.
and connections that matter, and the moves that matter, typically you're not going to have masses of numbers of people in your life that can kind of have that level of capacity and be a container for that. So I don't at all think it's crazy. Like I've got three
Yeah,
friends. I've got three, and I
exactly.
only talked to one. I talked to one
Exactly.
of them last night. I hadn't talked to her since maybe a month after I got married, and that was back in August, you know? So I have three
Hmm.
that I really consider to be friends, and I only talk to one
Hmm.
of them on a regular basis.
Same, same. And I would say that that's also um, something very important. And I think you see it more in the professional world, coming from finance, you may talk to your banker once a month, once a quarter, but it's a very valuable relationship. And same thing, like I don't, there should never be this expectation, and all three of my friendships are very different. What we need from each other is very different, but similar. Like I don't have time to, talk every day, talk
Yeah.
hours a day. But when you need someone, I'm your girl. Call me. I'm here for you. And I think too, also very unpopular, and I would say more uncomfortable for the younger generation, is finding people that are truly going to speak truth. My friends, they are great hype people. Like they will tell me the things that I am doing really well, but they also don't have a problem telling me the things that I need to improve on. They do it with grace and compassion. But if you have mentors, colleagues, friends that are kind of skirting around the bush, worried about how they can give you constructive feedback because of how you're going to take it, I would look in the mirror, because at the end of the day, we all should be striving to be better people. It's how we have better representation as women at tables that we want to be at, is being better, being a better version of ourselves and showing up in the best version we can in all areas of our life. And so I would say be open to the criticism and feedback that is coming at you, as long as it's coming with that grace and compassion.
Yeah, you actually hit on where I wanted the conversation to land before you wrap.
Sorry.
No, 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 no. I was going to say, like, that's a great segue into where I wanted to go next because when I talk about winning in the influence economy, it's not just about winning now, it's also about leaving a legacy. And you talked about
Mhm.
the younger people. And so, for those of us who are a bit more established in our leadership, a little bit more established in our professional growth, I won't say older,
I
although I
use
do feel,
mature. That's what
although,
I
yeah, although I do feel pretty old some days. But how
Mhm.
do we help young women who have drive to actually gain traction in upward mobility?
Yeah, that's also a really good question. You know, I say this a lot, but I would say stop comparing yourself. I think that we look at social media, we look at LinkedIn, we look at, I mean, you can even look at my track record. It was a very fast um, track record. And I think that people look at that, and if they're not on that same pace, what is wrong with me? How can I do better? What am I not doing? I would say that there's a level of, my success that came from being in the right place at the right time, and some of those relationships that I had built, and some of it is the skill set, right? And I knew in the company that I was at that some of these opportunities would have never been awarded to me if I was in a multi-billion dollar company, or even if I was in another company same size. So I would say don't compare yourself, and don't look at someone else's track record as the track record that you should be on. I would also say that you should look to those leaders that you want to be, that you look up to, that you feel like you can confide in, and pick their brain, follow them, pick their brain, and those leaders, speaking to them, mentor down.
Yeah.
Be willing to share that knowledge, like I talked about earlier. Don't be scared that they're going to take your role. That should be a compliment, that that they want to take your role and allow you to do bigger things. But I think social media is so great, but also so terrible, because it puts people in these comparison moments of like, I'm not good enough, or um, what am I doing wrong because I'm not at the same level as this person.
Yeah. And I especially think that that is when you're talking about the younger generation, like not falling into the comparison trap, especially
Mhm,
when that person is 10, 15, 20 years your senior. As someone who has a child that will be 29 in like a couple of months or something like that,
mhm,
I don't understand. I do understand, but this generation of people that are in that,
mhm,
20s, whatever, they seem to not just want, but expect to be able to have what it is that it took people 20 years older
mhm,
than 20 years to get. And so it's like, don't let these videos and, the stuff on social media lead you to believe that you're going to either get out of high school or get out of college, and by the 25 years old, you're going to be a millionaire and you're going to be the CEO of Icon Foods. Like, not to say that it's impossible, but it's
mhm,
highly unlikely. And so,
mhm,
don't expect not to have to pay your dues. Now, there's a lot of things that probably will catapult or compress time for you or accelerate your process just because of the way that technology is improving and people are, moving away from traditional
mhm,
jobs, et cetera, et cetera. But if you are a younger person, don't expect to be able to get where Cash is your third day out of college. Don't expect to
mhm.
accomplish everything that Shayna has accomplished. I'm 47 years old. And a lot of the things that you think you see me with that you want, I didn't even get them in my 20s. I didn't get them in my,
Mhm,
the house and stuff like that. I probably did get at an earlier age than most. But my point is that
mhm,
don't expect to be able to compress time to the point that you're now down and out and ready to, throw in the towel
mhm.
because you don't have what your, that people that have that are, 20 years older than you. So just slow your roll.
I couldn't have said it better myself. I'm sure you could probably take that script and find me saying exactly that somewhere else.
Absolutely. So, Cash, we're out of time, but you are a wealth of knowledge. And so,
Thank
if
you.
they want to follow you on social media, what platform do you recommend they follow you on?
I am most present on LinkedIn. So LinkedIn is the best place to find me. It's just at Kash Rocheleau. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one on there.
I bet you.
Very, very vocal in women and equality and um, women in manufacturing and reducing sugar in the diet. But
Absolutely.
that's where you can find me.
And if do you have anything that you want to offer if people want to take things further with you, if they want to learn more from you and get all the nuggets anywhere you want to send them?
Yeah, I would say LinkedIn again is the best place. I'm very intentional about getting back to everyone that reaches out to me, unless you are trying to sell me something. But truly, to your younger listeners, even maybe the ones that are in that more mature category that feel like they can pull something from me, I do what I do because I really have a passion for the people behind me because of the people in front of me and what they gave to me. I have this desire to give back. So I don't have anything specific to offer other than what I have in my brain and my experiences, the road bumps that I've gone over. I It brings me more joy to have those conversations and connections than sometimes my day to day.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to make sure that the link to your LinkedIn is in the show notes. So all that they have to do is click it because I know in people's minds right now, they're like, I don't have any idea how to spell Cash Rocheleau. I'm going to make that easy for you all. But Cash, I thank you so much for being willing to take time out of your day to day to share nuggets with my audience. I do believe that this is going to be a hit for the
Same.
younger ones and the more seasoned saints as well.
I like that term, seasoned saints. That's a good
Yeah.
one.
Thank you. I stole that from somebody else, so you can steal it from me. But everyone, I want you to share this episode far and wide with the women that are in your lives, that are in your communities. If this information or this episode has been insightful to you, I hope that you will consider going back and listening to previous and future episodes as well. Everyone, have a great day. Bye bye.